the Tasmanian Liberal Senator Richard Colbeck on the line. Good morning, Richard. How are you going?
Morning, guys. Very good, thanks.
Now, thanks very much for joining us, and we do appreciate you jumping on board with Fishing on the Pulse and getting the word out there to let people know exactly what's going on. Barry Tanner's running the show here in the studio, so we'll chuck you over to Baz and he can strut his stuff.
Good morning, Richard.
G'day, Barry.
You're the Shadow Parliamentary Secretary for Fisheries, Forestry, Innovation, Industry and Science.
That's correct. Yep.
You're a busy man.
Yeah.
Yeah, with this this super trawler that's coming out, the Magiris, there's been a lot of misinformation going around. I noticed and a lot of even to the boat size it varies that much. But it's just the main thing that seems to be coming out of it now with people I've talked to, even last night at a meeting we had over here on another subject, was you probably heard Nobby then talking about localised depletion.
Yeah, look, that does seem to be the issue that even the scientists are talking about, how we manage to ensure that the small chance of very localised depletion doesn't occur. And that's the issue that, as far as I understand, is being discussed in a group that the government's put together at the moment. The conversations I've had with Seafish Tasmania, the company that are bringing the vessel out, are very, very happy to work with interested parties to set up a way to manage this. They want to be able to manage the fishery so that it's of long-term benefit to them, but also so that it doesn't negatively impact on other users and interest groups. And I think the fact that those people are prepared to talk to each other is very positive.
Yeah, it is good. As we've been talking about this localised depletion, which I think we'll be talking a lot more in the future, if everyone knew that they weren't going to actually go to one spot, say off Flinders Island, and then take 5,000 kilograms of red bait there, I think a lot of people would feel a lot more at ease with this. But it's just, as you said, it's just hard getting the information out of some of these departments.
Well, look, there is a fair bit of information there, but it's in a lot of different places, and that's been one of the difficult things, I think, for a lot of people. They've had to go to a number of places to find things, and there hasn't been too many sites or places where it's been compiled into one place where people can pick up a number of opinions, for example, and some general information that can put them at ease, if you like, in respect of how this fishery is going to be put together. It's taken me 2 or 3 weeks to gather a whole heap of information, and obviously I've had to do a lot of reading to get across the issues, and then talk to quite a number of particularly high-level marine scientists and scientists that have expertise in this fishery, so that I can get a good handle on what's going on. And it comes back to that one particular issue, as you say, and that's that one of the very low chance of localised depletions, and a sensible way of managing that has to be put together, and it can probably be something that would benefit everybody in the fisheries into the future. And what I'm also finding is that this process is giving people a much better understanding of how our fisheries are being managed these days, and how that fisheries management has improved significantly in the last 10 or 15 years. Oh,
it definitely has, that's for sure. The other thing I was going to ask you was the economic value. I know it's hard to put a figure on it, but what economic value will the Australian people, the Australian public get out of this venture?
Well, I can only go on the figures that have been put out by the company at this stage. I know for a fact that they interviewed for 40 jobs here in Devonport last week, and they were very encouraged by the people that came forward for those interviews. There's a local business up here that's negotiating with them for the provision of 4,000 pallets, because obviously that's a facility that's going to be needed as part of the product being brought on shore here. It's in the millions of dollars, according to what the company's telling us. 40 jobs in this community would be very welcome at this point in time, because we've had a pretty tough time down here in Tassie at the moment. So there will be obvious opportunities. And the thing that encourages me a bit is that they're really looking to increase the value of the product that they're selling out of this. A lot of these products were going into fish meal and things of that nature. This vessel will provide the opportunity to provide a food-grade product. It is being exported, so it's an export market for us as well, but also the opportunity to develop a local market in these species, particularly the mackerel, and so the opportunity to grow a new market here in Australia, and we need to be consuming more of our own fish rather than importing it.
Yeah, that's great. The other issue that's cropped up a couple of times is, what's the likelihood? I know it's a $64 question, but what's the likelihood of the actual percentage, like it's will be increased in, say, people are worried about next year there might be 2 boats or 3 boats down here if they increase the percentage?
Well, the real thing is that the total take is constrained by quota. So there could be more vessels in the fishery. That's a possibility, but it will be constrained by the financial viability of that and also by the quota. And we have a very conservatively set quota. The maximum that could be taken out of this fishery is 20% of the spawning biomass. That is very, very conservative. If you compare that with what the Marine Stewardship Council say, they recommend taking 30%. Well, we're saying only 20%. So we're very conservative in the context of what that globally based fisheries certification body says. They say take 30. We're saying we're only going to take 20. So we're nowhere near that at this point in time. The quotas are currently set at 7.5% of spawning biomass in the Western Division. For red bait, they're 10% in the east and 7.5% for blue mackerel and jack mackerel. So they're very, very conservatively set at the moment. And the older the science gets, the less that you can take. So they can't increase the quota without new science. That has to be done. And in fact, the quota actually decays by 2.5% per year the older the science gets. So there's a whole heap of precautions that are built into the way that we manage this fishery. So it can't be increased without new science. And I do know that part of this actual project is to spend something of the order of $450,000 on a new egg survey so that we can get more up-to-date science.
We're talking to Tasmanian Liberal Senator Richard Colbeck. Richard, a couple of things I just wanted to mention. I've always held some concerns with the first thing, I'll do both points, is when you're talking about your spawn mass, and that's how they get their percentage, and based on your survival rate of your spawn mass, the percentage can be too much. You basically look at a lot of species these days and the survival rate of their spawn mass will basically be 30%. At the end of the day, you're going by that mass in whole and not what's happening later on. The second one was, I lived in New South Wales. I spent some time at Eden, Green Seas Tuna Factory, massive big super tanker comes through, a harvesting ship, everything's done on board. Every time that thing went through, we basically had the total destruction of our entire fishery for a period of anywhere between 3 weeks and a month before rec fishers and charter operators started to get any yield at all. This sort of thing going to happen in Tasmania?
Well, this isn't a specifically localised fishery. This quota can be taken from just north of the Queensland border down to the south of Tassie for the eastern quota, and from the south of Tassie right around past Perth for the western quota. My discussions with Seafish indicate that they don't want to be anywhere near where recreational fishermen are in particular. They think that they can quite comfortably complete this harvest by staying well out of your way. They're pretty keen to do that. The words that they've said to me is they'd like to be seen and not heard. And so they don't want to be working where you guys are working. We've even had conversations about staying away from particular areas at certain times of the year and when there's, say, for example, a fishing competition on. So they're very willing to work with the recreational sector to make sure that they don't interfere with your legitimate recreation, but also to make sure that they spatially manage the fishery properly, because after all, they actually have to do that. And so they're talking about taking, for example, a certain amount of the catch in each degree of latitude that they're working in and not taking any more, and then having move-on provisions within the way that they operate. So they're very cognizant of the issue. They've obviously spoken to the marine scientists, as some of us have, and there's a very good paper by Professor Keith Sainsbury, who's a global expert on these small pelagic fisheries, on my website. It's worth reading. And so I think a lot of these things, with sensible conversation, discussion and agreement, can be very well managed, and we can build a new fishery, and it's important that we do, because seafood makes a very, very important part of the global protein diet. It currently provides 25% of the global protein task, and to replace that with grass-fed or pasture-fed protein would mean you'd have to clear the world's rainforest 22 times over. So fisheries and seafood protein is a really vital part of our global diet and our global protein task. So we have to have well-managed fisheries, and it is certainly not in our interest to deplete them to a stage where they're not sustainable, because that creates a whole series of problems for us in respect of food security.
Yeah, well, I'd just like to say thank you, Richard, for your insight. It's great to have what you've said and everything in that, and we can decipher it all. It's answered a few questions, and I'd just like to thank you very much for your time this morning. And you're originally a boy from Myrtleford, I believe.
That's correct. My mum's family are from up that way, up around Werrali. Lovely part of the world, but I have to say I've spent most of my time in Tassie, including the days that I've enjoyed at the mouth of the Derwent round the Iron Pot, fishing for trumpeter, and up in the Highlands fishing for trout, which is something...
It probably gets nearly as cold in Tasmania as Myrtleford anyway, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah, it wouldn't be far off it. Although I don't think Tasmania's got as many bakeries close by to where you fish. That's a significant
I think
part.
You're probably right. You have to travel a little bit further to get a warm bakery from, particularly if you're up the lakes.
No, beautiful.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you very much for that, for giving us your time this morning, and hopefully talk to you again shortly.
Thanks very much, guys.
Thank you, Richard. Bye.
Cheers.
There goes Liberal Senator in Tasmania, Richard Colbeck. Now we will take a small session. It's a pause session here, and we'll finish off this run here on the Super Trawler with Peter Wish-Wilson and for Greens Senator in Tasmania. So interesting one, that one, Baz. It's the first time I think ever I have seen a Greens person. We'll call them that.
First time you ever spoke to one, isn't it?
No, we spoke to a couple.
But look at our radio, our logo. It's very green.
Yeah, let's not go there. And at the end of the day, though, I think a lot of things can be measured out of what's going on here, and that is the significance of a recreational fisherman and a Green senator standing side by side, shoulder to shoulder, to discuss exactly the same topic. Right? This stuff doesn't happen. And you take a look at that, so that shows the significance in what we're talking about here. But when they start, like we spoke, when they start talking about, biomass, and when they start talking about, self-regulation, hey.
Self-regulation, no such thing.
And it was a fair area, too. It covers all the way up to North Queensland.
Oh, it's a big area, but...
From Tassie, it's a big area, and right across to Adelaide.
Yeah, but Tassie's their haul.
Yeah,
you can spread as many wings as you want over as big an area as you want, but they have a particular zone they want, and that zone they want is that area off Tasmania. And by including the whole lot, everywhere, all around the country, whatever they want to stretch to, by including that in, it makes it look less significant, and that we're all just, you're jumping up and down about nothing. I really think that,
Smoke and mirrors, you reckon?
It's a big area, but...
Thank you, Stephen.
As we mentioned before about the migratory pattern of redbait, no one knows what it does. I'm sure it doesn't go up the east coast of Queensland. I
was extremely interested in when Nobby Clark was talking at the start there about how they fit themselves into a stream-type environment out in the currents in the middle of the ocean, and they tightly pack themselves in. Now, if they're doing that in our southern oceans, it's damn cold there. I just can't imagine redbait moving from 11-degree water temperatures into 28-degree water temperatures, and throwing on a bit of zinc cream and a few towels and just spreading out on the top a bit. It's just, I don't think it's going to happen. You know what I mean? They're there in Tasmania, they're in cold water, they're in cold water all the time, they're schooling en masse to spawn in cold water. Chances are they're going to stay there. So, but anyway, we're just going to take a quick pause, and we will be back in just a moment.